Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this month's webinar. Thanks for being with us today. Lots of, I see some new names, which is great. I've done a lot of Camera Club presentations recently, so I'm sure a lot of you guys were on those. So thanks for being with us, and a lot of old friends I see on here. So thank you all. All right, so today we're doing things a little bit differently. We have a guest with us today. My special guest is Gavin Phillips. Gavin, you're there? You can unmute yourself.
I'm here, yes, alive and well in very wet London, UK.
Ah, there you go. Yes, so Gavin and I have been working together for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
On various projects. He's also part of the team that developed the LayerCake software that you've seen me use in the past. And you can see I have my little icons here docked on my toolbar. Today he's going to be showing us some new things he's developed. He's going to do most of the presentation, and then in between there, I'm going to do a live demo of the watercolor action, the new product. And I'm going to show you how I used it on one of my images, and then Gavin's going to show you some other stuff. So there's a whole bunch of programs we're going to kind of show you today, and then he's got a really special deal for you at the end. So with that, Gavin, I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, great.
And then I'll watch the chat box and see if we have any questions as we go as well.
Super. So yeah,
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can go ahead and share yours. How's that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
I will start sharing my screen now. Thank you for that introduction, Hazel. Yeah, just to give you a little bit more information about myself. For over 20 years, I've been developing generally called, Photoshop plugins, but those are, Photoshop action sets, add-on software for Photoshop, could be overlays, could be many, many things. But a great passion of mine for a very long time has been how to turn photos into realistic painted art. Different types of art, but where they, it actually, if it's watercolor, it looks like it's a watercolor. So that's been something that's been, very of great interest to me, and also, a lot of our customers really enjoy that as well. So let's I'm going to minimize Photoshop here, and we'll begin here. So I'm going to start with this photo to cartoon. Can everybody see the screen okay? I'm just checking. Can
yes.
Okay,
yes,
great.
I can.
Yeah. Okay, super. So with the cartoon action, the first thing you need to do is make a selection of where you want the cartoon action to apply to. So obviously with this, it's going to be this young lady here. There's a couple of ways to do it. You could just fill it in with a brush, or you can use this object select tool, which is fairly new for Photoshop, and it's very
Gavin,
good. Yep.
Sorry,
yep.
I see your Photoshop, but I'm not seeing the picture.
Okay, so let's. Oh, you know what? Let's back up here a bit. Maybe it. Hang on a sec. Let's.
Are you showing the recording?
Your screen recording is paused. Okay, wait a minute. Let's see here. Why is it paused?
There is. Let's see. Oh
no, I got it.
Okay,
but I'm.
Because I know there's another setting that you need to, when you're sharing a screen with a video, I always have that issue with our conferences.
Oh, there we go. That's the problem. Yeah, I do have to. No, you're absolutely right. I do have to switch the actual sharing. So can you see it now?
There you go. Yes,
you got it.
I see the gal.
Yeah, so we'll start from.
Yeah, now it's showing the media.
Yeah, showing the lady. Yeah. So as I was saying. When you start this action, you apply, you just either you could brush over her, or you can use the object select tool, whichever is easier. Actually, I mean, sometimes it's easy, this doesn't have to be an exact selection. Okay, so we're just doing a loose selection here, but I thought it would be nice to, some people aren't even familiar with this object selection tool in Photoshop. It's done a good job with a kind of a one click, but we've got an area at the bottom of her knee there which needs to be removed. So I'll remove that with the lasso tool. Just go around that and get rid of it, and then we can just fill that area with a solid color. So I'm going to use red, and then what we'll do is we'll get rid of the marching ants, and we'll remove the other area one, and we'll remove the background copy. And then we'll go to the actions. You do want to select the area that we're most interested in, and then you just run the action. And runs through a lot of steps for us automatically. And you'll see in a second here, when we get into the layers, you've got a lot of ways to edit it and turn on and off different tinting layers. What's really interesting for me is these backgrounds. So you can turn these backgrounds on and off. You can also edit them. So this one, the scaling's off a bit. Okay, so you can double click and you can go into the layer styles dialog box, and then you can play with the scaling slider. You can click inside the background and drag it around as well. So I'm just clicking and dragging. So you can get it, how you want it that way. You can change the angle of the pattern, and there are other custom patterns that are included with this set of actions. So you can scroll down to those and see if you prefer something different again. I do like this one. You can also change the color, so we'll do that in a second here. Just click OK, get out of there, and just by double clicking on the color, you can change the color to anything you want. So a lot of fun ways to edit this effect, with obviously changing the background out. Now, as you'll notice, so what I recommend is turning on and off a lot of these layers that we put in there with this splash paint. Nearly everything has a mask on it, so you can mask out certain areas that you may not like. There's also this, we've got a couple of layers with gradients on there. So you can change the gradients. You can also brush the gradients onto certain areas. Obviously, it's right on her at the moment, but you could brush it off of her and onto the background. So yeah, it's whenever I set up these actions, I always make sure there's plenty of ways to edit them, make it yours, come up with your own kind of style. There's another gradient in here which kind of looks cool on the background. I might brush it off of her and put it on the background. So that's the photo to cartoon. Now we'll take a look at a different one. This is the Van Gogh style of art. There's two different ways to use this. There's for a portrait. So in this particular case, it's the same kind of setup where we make a selection of him. We want the action to apply to him. So I've used the same tool, the object select tool, and now I'll get rid of the marching ants, fill it with white. You can fill it with any color, it doesn't matter. It's just letting the action know that that's the area that you want to focus on, and then run the action. Okay. And it does a real nice job. And also what's interesting, once again, with these, you can turn on and off these layers. So you get rid of that kind of, it depends how you want the background to look. You can experiment with all different kinds of brush backgrounds, which are really neat. And similar to the cartoon action, you can also make a lot of changes to these backgrounds by going once again into the double clicking and going into the layer style dialog box. So I'll show you that once again. You can scale them. You can click and drag inside the image. I do that quite a bit to just move it around, to move certain areas, angle, and also it does come with a number of specific patterns for this particular painted look, and you can click through those and choose something different again. So you've got a lot of different painted backgrounds there to choose from. But another cool area, I'll just turn off I'll turn him off. And you can just have the background and use the background, the brush background for another type of design, you know. So if I turn off this edging, what I call this edging, so you have the blue there, and if we zoom in, you'll see that you've got these really neat brush strokes, and, you know, this could be used in any kind of, like I say, any kind of photograph, any other background. You've got all these other brush backgrounds. So my point is, it has other applications with this action than just doing kind of a Van Gogh effect. You've got some other tinting layers here that you can turn on and off. But one thing I have found with the this particular action is that it also works quite well with cityscapes and even landscapes as well. And I'll show you one in a second here. So this is London. Now for this one, the setup of the name of the empty layer is the same, but I want to apply the effect to the entire image. So I'm just going to fill that layer with red and then run the second action here, which is the Van Gogh for the entire photo, and just run the action there. And once again, you know, I think it's an interesting look to it. And before we move on to the watercolor, are there any questions about any of this, or?
I've been answering a couple things in the chat box. People have asked how they get them, and I said, well, we'll be talking about your special offer in a little bit.
Okay, so I'll go through the watercolor and then we'll switch to you then, Hazel, yeah?
Okay, yeah, and I'll do, because I'm going to show them live
super.
one of the ones that I did, and then you can go back to some other cool stuff.
Great, cool. Okay.
Thanks.
So with the watercolor, you run the setup action first. It just saves 3 or 4 clicks. You got 2 areas, the sketch area, which is the main focus of the action. So obviously that's going to be our friendly dog here. Now with this effect, once again, you're brushing in where you want the sketch effect to apply. And I do this with the brush. I don't do it with the object select. It works better, I think, with the brush for this particular one. It's very fast, as you can see. We're just doing a loose selection. Sometimes that object select can get a bit fussy. So I've selected the sketch area. Now I just move to the watercolor area. You'll need a different color for that. So I'll use a green and basically do the same thing again, apart from I do put a couple of spots on the background, even though the background's kind of boring looking on this particular image, but we'll see how we go when we. So then you just leave it like that, and then you go to the watercolor 2022, run that, and it's going to run through a lot of steps for you. Now, once again, you get a lot of layers. So the first thing I do, I turn off the watercolor spots. I just turn the layer off. I haven't deleted it because I want to see what I'm doing. The next thing is the sketch elements are a bit strong in areas. Okay, so you want to I personally want to remove some of those. Okay, it only takes a few seconds. Just brush on the layer mask with black, and I'm also going to remove some of it from the dog. They're a bit strong on him. Once again, you've got complete control where you want the how strong you want these sketch effects to be. I don't remove them all. I just remove some of it. And also off of the, off of parts of the main image here. So the next thing is I'm going to turn back on the watercolor spots, okay? And these have been created by the action. They go randomly throughout the image, and, you're probably not going to want them everywhere, right? So you can just remove them from the dog. The next thing is I often like to add extra paint splatter. So I've got an extra layer here. Using one of your custom brushes, right? You can choose any color you want, of course. I'll go with blue. And what's interesting here is, as you see, the background is quite a bit different than just that plain black background, right? So it's done a good job of giving us a kind of a watercolor feel to it. And, you know, some of these brushes have what's known as a scatter. Every time you click it, they randomly rotate and change size. But once again, it's hard to control it completely. So, you know, I put a layer mask on there because we might want to remove some of that if it's going too much onto the dog. And now these color effects are very different from the cartoon. They're quite different. This autumn one is one of my favorites. But once again, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll fill the tinting layer with black to hide it, and then brush in the tint where I want it. You know, I might not want that tint at 100% throughout the whole of I want it mainly on him and a bit on the background. So I'll, you know, maybe between 50 and 70% painting with white and just brush that in on him, you know, to get a bit more color on him, a bit more emphasis, and then a little bit on the background as well. And that's how I work with these actions. And it gives you, you know, and if you brush away too much or you brush on too much, you just switch colors. You just, you know, go between black and white with the layer mask. And yeah, you've got a lot of ways to go with the now. Even we've also added some custom watercolor papers. So these will be dropped into the background area. So if we go down to background elements, you can see you've already got a couple of sepia and a vintage there. You can turn those on and off, and or you could reduce the opacity, right? It might be a bit too strong, drop it back a bit. Alternatively, you can bring in one of these custom watercolor papers, another one, that is. Turn off this, I've got like a grunge layer above there, so I'm going to drag it up. And, you know, you could add one of those nice watercolor papers to finish it off. So a lot of creative ways to go. I'll show you a few more here that I've created. Here's obviously a portrait. So yeah, it's, you know, a lot of fun, a lot of editing capabilities, and works on so many different images that even there's even this black and white one here, which is, you know, it's kind of a cool image. It was a black and white photo to start with, and I thought, I wonder how it will look with the watercolor effect. What you can do, of course, is you can combine the black and white photo with some color splatter too, right? So you can get, you know, as creative as you want to be. So yeah, I'm finished with that part for the watercolor. I'll switch to, well, you can take it, or do I have to make you the presenter?
I think I can still, just let me see if I can go ahead and share.
I'll stop my sharing.
When when I start, it would stop yours anyway.
Okay.
So let me go here. So I have an image ready to go. And the reason we don't do all of these live is that when you run the actual watercolor action, it takes about 90 seconds. I actually timed it on my phone too to see how long it took. And it takes about a minute and a half. So we wanted to get through as many different things as we could. So that's why Gavin has pre-recorded these, but he's walking you through all of the steps. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and go to the actions and come back up here. Is there a question here? Is it a difficult program to learn? No, Pat, I actually just tried it myself. I finally got to it a few days ago because I've been so busy with everything I've had going on lately. But Gavin supplies videos with the products. Yeah,
so I've,
yep, and that's how I learned it. I just watched the video, and it's really pretty simple. If you watch what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go in first to, let's see. So we're going to go to the watercolor setup action, and we're going to run that. And then come back to your layers panel, and that will add those 2 layers that we need to make the selections on. So I'm going to do like that. I'm just going to pick a color, and I'm going to brush around my subject where I want the sketch effect to go, and I do want to get his whiskers in here. I did this one earlier. I was practicing, and I like the way it came out, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger now. And we can just finish putting this all in here. These are actions. So you import them to your actions panel. Dave's asking me questions in the background. That's why I have him here. Oh, actually, I was on the watercolor layer. So let's go just a little bit wider on that one. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong layer first. I'm going to hide that for a second so I can see where I'm going. Choose a second color. I'm going to do this one a little bit tighter. Still want to make sure I get those whiskers in there. And okay, so we'll turn that one back on. So then you come back to the action, and next we're going to run that real watercolor action. So we're going to click on here, and this is what it's going to take about 90 seconds. And at first, it actually, you can see the little spinning dots, but it kind of looks like for a while nothing's happening. But if you have it open, you can see all of the steps that it's actually running through. And it will just start appearing. So, yep, there it goes. You start seeing things happen, then it kind of pauses, and it's doing things in the background that you just can't see. All right, so we have a couple. Yep, so the second color, Kathy, one layer is selecting the area for the sketch effect itself, and the other one is for the watercolor effect. So that's why in the watercolor, you might want to select a little more of the background like Gavin did in his. He put like the extra green little strokes on the side just to add a little more difference. And it goes through all these steps, and you'll see it happening in a few seconds. It's doing lots of stuff in the background that you can't see. So I left this panel open so you can actually see it going through. I think you said there was like a couple hundred steps in here.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
It's doing.
And it does depend on two things: the size of the photo and the power of your computer. So you know, some people have got real powerhouses. Might take 30 seconds.
Mine's a pretty good.
Yeah, yours is
processor.
Yeah.
A couple of people have asked. This does not. They've asked if it works with Elements, but I don't think so.
No,
right?
unfortunately not. No.
Yeah, Elements doesn't have all of the functions that are required for an action. This involves. There are some actions that will run on Elements, some simpler ones, but when you're, working with certain things, it just doesn't have that capability. Chris said you painted the line for both. Is that going to cost trouble? No, you actually want to do about the same one. Your subject is what you're selecting, and then for the background or the watercolor effect, you can go a little bit further out from your subject. And you can see it's starting to layer in now some of the sketch effects.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, and I just messaged everybody. I put together a very concise tutorial about 15 to 18 minutes, not just showing you the basics of how to run the action, but also my tips of what are the most important layers to use when you're editing it after the action has finished.
Yes, and that's how I learned this. Is I watched your video, and I have two monitors, as most of you know. So I had the video playing on one, and I had my image on my other in my Photoshop, and then I stopped the video and then did that step you showed, and then I'd go back and watch the next part of it, and so that it definitely
and the other thing is we're only an email away. Yeah, we're only an email away. If you have any questions, just drop us an email.
Before you start doing the action itself, there are some files that you will get with the product that you'll install, like the brushes you'll install into your brush panel. There are the patterns you'll install into your patterns folder, which are very simple to do, just like any other brushes that you would install. And you'll see those in a second when I go in to do some more splatters and stuff. You'll see where they end up in my panel. So we're almost there. I know it's kind of getting towards the end when it gets to that part.
Yeah, and there's also, I include a movie showing you how to load files into Photoshop if you're unfamiliar with that. So,
yep. Does this work on older versions of Photoshop?
It works from CS6 through CC. So that's
Okay.
all
So
versions.
that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, I mean, CS6 is going
At
back
this
some
point.
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know there are some people still doing it. Oh, Chuck has CS5. Wow.
Well, you know what, Chuck, though? I mean, just
If
because
it's
I
still
haven't.
working.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't tested it on CS5. It may work on CS5, but yeah, I haven't got a version of CS5 on my laptop anymore.
He said I can do the subscription. I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
I really like having the Creative Cloud. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of a subscription, but they update it a lot more often than they ever did when it was standalone, versions. And it, in the long run, it really saves money because Photoshop, when I started, I worked with Elements because Photoshop was just too expensive. I couldn't justify like $600 for this program. And Elements was $100 or less when you got it on sale.
Right.
And then I started, after they started with the Creative Cloud, probably about a year or so later, I finally took the plunge into Photoshop. You can still get, it's $10 a month. For Photoshop and Lightroom. They call it the photographer's bundle, and it's $9.99 plus tax. So, all right, and we're done. So that was about 90 seconds. So I'm going to now go back to my layers panel. And this is where you can come in and start customizing everything. So I actually jotted down what I did so I could remember what I did. So in this blue section, under where the sketch lines are, there's 2 here. And to see what each one is affecting, you can just turn it off and on. You can see that some of the sketch lines are on his face, where here they're a little bit more around the edges. I did come in and mask where it's kind of got like the line around him. I didn't like that as much, so I'm going to make sure I'm on my soft brush, which I think I am, and make it smaller. And I can see it's mostly on this layer, so I'm going to come in and just kind of come around here. I'm going to turn this layer off for a second because it's on I'm on white, that's why. I'm going to switch my foreground color to black, always helps. And paint around here a little bit. And this is just, part of the way it structures the whole, the sketching area. But you can easily get rid of this, and you can say, I'm really just getting rid of that line, not everything else. So we'll do that. So they were good there, so we can turn that back on. And there's a little bit of it on that, this one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that. It picks up on both of those sketch layers. And try to do this fairly quickly.
Let's have a look at the questions here. Okay. And
on this one, I decided to get rid of these kind of the square border lines. So I'm just going to turn that layer off. And then I went down into the color effects here, the 20 color effects. And this first one I used, but then I lowered the opacity of this layer to about 60%. I added a little bit more color, but I didn't want all of the color. So you can, again, they're all customizable. You can always change the opacity or mask areas where you don't want the effect. And then I'm going to go into down here, the Painterly colors, and come into this one with the saturation and pull that back a little bit where it added some color. I'm actually going to take away a little bit. Okay. And then next I'm going to go into I can close that back up, the background elements. Let's close that one. There's lots of sections, and so you can always open and close them with the little arrows. So in here, I'm going to bring in one of the watercolor papers I have on my other screen, and I brought in number 2. And I'm going to just rotate this so I don't have to stretch it as much. And you can see it's added a nice soft watercolor look in here in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice.
And then we're going to go to watercolor spots. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to add a
the
layer.
spots. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to add a layer up above. So just add a blank layer. And then I'm going to go to the brushes. So if I come down here to the bottom, these 3 are the 3 brush sets that you'll install. And if you go into the splatter ones, I'm going to choose number 20. And I did come into the brush settings and change the, whoops, get over there. And my brush settings, change the jitter a little bit. So it would rotate a little bit more. So just like any other brush, you can always change all of those. And then let's choose a color. And I think I wanted to add a little bit more of this blue, but then I went a little bit lighter. So we're going to start with that, about that size. And you can see it, they're randomly adding it and rotating the brush. Back off so I can come off the edge a little more. And then you can add another color of brushes. We can go with, let's try, I think I went with a little bit like a tan color, like from his nose. And you can make them a little bit smaller if you want. And again, you can make them as subtle as you want. And you could make a separate layer for each color if you want to, so that way you can lower opacity, like that. And then you can look, at the splatters that are in here and turn them on and off. Again, if there's some that you don't want on the subject. And then the last thing I did was I just went to, where did I do this at? Added a layer up here, and I wanted to get rid of that black area kind of behind his nose, his ear was kind of bothering me. So I'm going to just go, actually I don't need a brush, I need my healing brush. Just added a blank layer, and as long as you have sample all layers checked, you can do your healing on a separate layer. And I just got rid of that. I just thought that was distracting to me, having that up there. And then from here, you can save this as a TIFF or a PSD file. And then, so I'm going to do that. So I already have it saved. So I'm going to just flatten it because I already have one saved. So once you save it, you want to flatten it. Say, okay. And if you come back to the action, now you can, let's close this one up, choose the high contrast and run that one. Come back to your layers. This goes very quickly. So stop and go to the layers. And Chris says, Gavin, I've loved the videos you had in the Christmas bundle. They made everything so clear, and I've used the styles on text too.
I just answered that. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, I really do take time in those tutorials.
So when you add the contrast layer, it actually masks the whole thing out. So if you take your soft brush and paint with white, you can uncover that just in the areas you want to add some more contrast. And again, then we can lower. I'm going to actually lower.
Yeah, because it's quite strong
on that, because that's real strong. So I'm going to come down to about 23%. Just add a little bit of contrast in here, in the face. You can see where I'm doing it at a very low opacity. And then the other thing that you can do is you can save this again if you want the intermediate, one, or just go ahead and flatten it again, come back to the actions, and now you can do your sharpening. and then come in here, and same thing, there's a hue and saturation adjustment, which I just turned off. I didn't think it needed any more saturation at all. And then in this high pass sharpening, again, use your brush with white and just bring in some of that sharpening where you want it. So you don't have to do the whole thing, but it'll make like the whiskers in this case really stand out, and the hair on him. And there you have it.
No, perfect.
That's my, okay, David. Okay. So there you go. So that's kind of my version of it and one of my images. And so that didn't take that long, about 5 minutes I maybe spent total, and that's with talking in between and everything else.
Yeah, right.
So Kent says, so without Photoshop, you can't utilize this program. Right. These are actions to be used with Photoshop. So you do need to have Photoshop, for this process to work, because that's what the action is based on, steps in Photoshop.
Yeah, I saw
and it
Vicky.
Is fun, Vicky. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. It's so much fun. You can have fun, doing it for the kids.
I tried it on
go ahead.
A couple things. I was just going to show you one other one I did. I'm not going to go through the steps. I'll just show you a finished one I did with flowers, which is also a really cool thing to use these on. It's a TIFF file, so it's going to take a second.
Yeah.
And I did that on there.
Oh, wow. That's really neat.
And this is an image I just used in a class last week with textures, but here's, so you can go totally different ways by using, different techniques on your photos, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks great. It does. I must say they do work particularly well with flowers. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought this was pretty cool. So, all right. So
we got a question there. How much larger is the final file?
That's a good question. Let's see. Because, let's do the one before I did the contrast. Let me take a look. I'm looking at mine, going to my properties on my other screen. It's 940 megabytes.
But how was it? What was it originally?
And my original was 37 megabytes. So it's considerably larger, but it's not like you do it to every image that you own. So the few, files that you're going to do this on, and if you don't want to save the layers, you can always flatten it and save it.
Yeah, but I think though, Hazel, once it's flattened, it will be very similar, wouldn't it?
Yeah, let's see if I go to the one that I did the last contrast on, because that was flattened. That one's only 185. So yeah, so once you flatten it, if you don't want to keep all the layers, it will be much smaller. So that's completely up to you. I'm the kind of person, I have lots of storage space. So because we have a network drive, we have 4 terabyte drives in there, and I have the room for it, so I tend to save my TIFF files, but if space is, a consideration, you can always flatten it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I always keep, of the images that I really like, I keep the PSDs, because you might want to go in and change it, right?
Exactly. I may come back tomorrow and go, well, I want to change the background, change the watercolor paper, change, something, the color, tweak it a little bit. And David C. sent a message to hosts and panelists of what my computer specs are. David, if you email me, I can send you that, because I actually just sent it to someone else this morning. My computer was custom built, and it is going on 7 years old, believe it or not, and it's been fabulous, knock on wood. So at the time we got it, the reason I did the custom built is because I needed a fast graphics card, and that's really the key with computers. If you're looking to buy a computer that's pre-made, whether a laptop or a desktop, look at gaming computers, because those are going to have the best graphics cards. And that's what I did when I had to get a new laptop.
No, that's exactly what I did. You're absolutely spot on. Yeah.
Linda, this text was part of my image, my original image. Whoops. I don't know if we can see that here. I'll show you. That's my original before anything. So that writing was already there. So it just kind of faded it out there. So yeah, David, if you want to just send me an email, I'll send you that list later on. All right.
Okay,
Turn
back
it
to
back
me.
over to
Yep.
you. And let me. There's a TIFF. I missed that one. Somebody. Oh, is it better to save TIFF or PSD files? They're really about the same, except that a TIFF is a more universal file format, and that's what I prefer to save it as, where a PSD is proprietary to Adobe. There may be some other programs that cannot open a PSD file. At one point, I know Topaz products could not, then they changed that somewhere along the way that it will now open PSDs. So in between, I got in the habit of using the TIFF instead. So that's why I do that.
Okay.
Gavin's got his little tidbits in there, so that's a cool thing. Alrighty, so let me stop sharing, and I'll let you take it away again.
Okay, very good. Let's go back to where we finished off, which was with our black and white version. So I
like that one. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, it's it's something I tried as a kind of an experiment. Didn't think it would work, and turned out better than I thought. Yeah. So I'm just going to show real quick a couple of I constantly, I get a lot of requests from Photoshop users to show them how to remove people from backgrounds quickly in Photoshop. And because Photoshop has evolved so much over the past few years with the AI, I'll show you a couple of ways to remove an easy cutout. So this kid skateboarding is what I would call an easy cutout, but showing you a technique that you probably haven't heard of. And even Hazel hadn't heard of it until I mentioned it to her earlier today, which is using quick actions. Okay. So the way that you access quick actions is under help on the top of the screen. It's under help and Photoshop help, and up comes pops this discover dialog box, and you go to quick actions, and then you just select remove background. And for something like this, it's literally a one-click deal. So we can see there I've obviously got the green background, it's put a layer mask on him, and it's done a really good job, actually, considering it's a one-click, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. For this young lady here, we're going to use something a little bit more in depth. We'll start off with the object select tool. So you just have to kind of click inside. The AI is pretty good at picking up the person, and it's trying to select a hair as well. And then I go into select and mask, and we've got it on a black background. Now, at the very top, you'll see refine hair. I've often found, though, that when I click it, it actually gets worse. So I'm going to back out of that. But there is a couple of areas that are worth looking at. Decontaminate colors, I normally check mark that. And you've got a couple of brushes up here. You've got a regular brush and a refine edge brush. And we can see there's a bit of background by her elbow or the bottom of her dress there. So I'm just kind of touching that up just to finish it up. And then new layer with layer mask. And what I'll do is I'll trim it a bit, give her hair a bit of a trim at the top. And also, this is just with a regular soft brush, just on the layer mask, just cutting it, trimming off some of the loose pieces of hair. I've got a background here, and I can drag and drop her into that, and then just kind of scoot her down a bit. But it gives you an idea of what you can do pretty quickly, with Photoshop's new AI. Obviously the quick actions, it's literally one click. You might have to make a couple of changes or edits with the layer mask, and with the select and mask, does a pretty good job. So just wanted to show you that. Now this is interesting. I don't know if any of you have ever tried displacement maps in Photoshop. They sound complicated, and they are quite complicated. I remember trying to do it about 10 years ago, and it took me about 40 minutes to do it. But what I've done now is I've created a small set of actions that does it for you. And I'll show you here with this Statue of Liberty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the American flag around the Statue of Liberty. Okay, so you start off with, you have to select an area. Okay, now we know we can do that quite quickly with the object select tool. We've been using that, and it is for this particular application, it's very good. I don't want the whole of the base. I just want that little bit of the base at the bottom there. Just miss that. So we've got our selection. Now all I do is I just fill it with any color. I've got green. We'll do that. And I'm going to delete the background copy. And then we're going to continue with the action. So the next step is remain detail. We've already done the detail part. So we'll now it's placing the logo or the symbol. So I've got the American flag here. It pops it in there for us. All you have to do is resize it and reposition it. So I'm just going to get it exactly how I want it on the Statue of Liberty. You press enter. And this is where it saves the displacement map. And you just have to put it somewhere where you remember where it is. Click on save. We're going to come back to that in a second. It's going to apply the flag. I found that these settings work very well. You can experiment with them, of course. And now we come back to that displacement map. And we're going to apply that to the to finish it up. Okay, so now you've got ways to obviously edit this. I like to lighten it a little bit, sometimes a little bit dark. I also want to remove the displacement map from the face of the Statue of Liberty. I don't want it on there. So once again, very simply, grab a brush, a soft brush, and just brush it away so that we have the we can see the face of the Statue of Liberty. So and of course it don't have to just be flags. You can put many things, but you can see the way it's actually gone into the detail, the areas of the statue there. Mm-hmm. You've got sharpening layers, or where you can put you can sharpen it up. Generally, I don't want it on the background, but you might want it on there. Here, I put the Italian flag on there. I also put it onto a Corvette, the American flag. So it's a neat action. It has certain applications, not for everything, but something a bit different. So this is another painting technique. This uses a combination of actions and a few brush strokes. I call it painterly. It's very different from the watercolor and from the cartoon effect. So I've run the action, which has kind of softened him up a bit. Now I use one of my custom brushes, which are all included in the software set. And what you do is you just start putting small brush strokes into the face. Okay. What I found is, I've been doing this for many years, you can't get an authentic painted look by just using filters. You need those, extra brush strokes, extra things. And in this case, I'm just putting a few brush strokes. You won't see them very clearly right now, but you will see them when we do the heavy sharpening and the heavy contrast. Okay. So I'm just adding, like I said, I use a mouse. I'm not using, a stylus or a Wacom tablet or anything. Now I've changed to a different brush. This is a very heavy brush to break down his sweater. Okay. It only takes a few seconds, and it does make a big difference to the authentic kind of painted finished image, which you'll see in a minute or so. So I just roughly go over the, his whatever clothes they're wearing, just to give it that, random brushstroke effect that you won't get that with filters, okay, on their own. So I'm going to, I've kind of finished with that section. I'm going to now run the same action that we had before, actually, which is the heavy sharpening. And I normally bring it in at about 20 or 30%, generally on the subject, not on the background, okay, because it is a it is of real hard sharpening, and it will bring out the brush strokes. You'll start to see more brush strokes being visible. And also I generally put it on there, close a little bit as well, to, bring that out. Then the high contrast. And this is an important action for bringing in the dark, the shadow. Okay. You have to be careful with it. Probably 20-30% is about enough. But we can see now what a difference this is making, and you can see, a lot of those brush strokes being, shown up, and we can take a look at the original photo and our finished portrait here. Literally, these take 5 to 10 minutes, and it's a lot of fun too, and it's totally different from our cartoon effect there. There is one other thing I want to show here. So I'm going to show Photoshop. I'll share Photoshop, because there's one other thing that I did include in this special bundle of software. Are these beautiful floral arches and Baroque photo backgrounds. Now, they're very high resolution. They're 20 by 13 at 300 DPI. Obviously, these are JPEGs, so you can use them in Photoshop Elements, in any graphics program, not just Photoshop. Just giving you a quick overview here of them. They're really unique and quite lavish with their all of these different flowers and everything. And of course, you can use these for any commercial or any projects that you want. You can use these. They're included in the for you to use. So now I'll pop up the the special offer that we're offering. Considering everybody came out to the webinar, we're offering a huge discount, over 90% off. So you get the all of the watercolor actions, everything there. This apply the graphic to anything actions, the cartoon effect, the Van Gogh as well, the painterly that I just showed you with the extra brushes, the backgrounds here, and everything is for $39 for the next day or so. It's only for people who signed up for the webinar. We're not offering this to anybody else. I'll send you the purchase link in the comment section there. Are there any other questions, Hazel?
No, I think we've been covering everything as we went.
Okay,
haven't been in the last few seconds. So yeah, so it's a great deal. Like I said, I've tried quite a few of these products over the time that we've been working together, as well as the other stuff, and they're always great products, and they work well, and they're really easy to learn. It looks like there's a lot of steps, but they're actually really pretty simple.
Yes, it does.
Just working with the latest and all that. Yes, the deal package includes tutorials. Yes,
absolutely.
There are. You have them on each individual product too, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Like I said, with the watercolor one, I was watching it just a few days ago and created, a few of my own projects just by watching the tutorial, and it really walks you through it step by step. So yeah, go ahead and click that link. I'll also put it up on, let's see, what's today? Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow's my blog day. I will also post it in my blog. For everybody who was here or those who didn't. It will also be in the Zoom, the meeting, like thank you reminder kind of thing. And then this whole webinar, as always, will be on my YouTube and Vimeo channels, and I'll get that up by tomorrow. Gavin will be sending me the recording, and then I will post that. It will be up tomorrow, Virginia, of this. It will be, as soon as I get it from Gavin, I'll just do a quick edit off like the beginning chit chat part and put my intro on it and put it on my YouTube. And then I will put it in the blog as well. And my hubby, while we were all sitting here looking at all this great stuff, he did a drawing for a free entry to our June Creative Photography Conference. And David C., you are the winner. So email me about the computer stuff, and I will email you the info back on how to sign up for that.
Great. Yeah. I'm just
thanks,
looking through
everybody.
any other questions before we
Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Lots of kudos and
what I'll do now is I'll also send out an individual email which will go out to everybody who signed up, and just in case obviously there's quite a number of people who weren't able to make the webinar, but as Hazel said, we'll the recording will be posted very shortly, and super. Okay, well, we really appreciate everybody coming out.
Definitely. Thanks, everybody. Good to see lots of familiar faces as well as some new ones. I thank you all for being here. And I think that should make it a wrap. And we're just a couple minutes inside of 5 o'clock. So that was really cool.
Kept it all inside about an hour. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that worked out well. All righty.
Great.
Thanks, Gavin, for being with us today.
Okay. Thank you.
I will
Thanks a lot.
talk to you soon.
Yep.
Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.